Mt Tamborine is packed with rainforests, waterfalls, great food, wineries, and some of the best views anywhere in southeast Queensland. Over the day, we're going to experience both the relaxed and the adventurous sides of this mountain. If you only have one day in Mt Tamborine, then this is the itinerary for you. Mt Tamborine is located in southeast Queensland, just over an hour's drive from the state capital Brisbane and around 45 minutes from the Gold Coast. It sits up in the scenic rim hinterland, surrounded by mountain roads, waterfalls, and some of the oldest subtropical rainforest environments in the world. A lot of people have only ever seen a small part of it, so for this itinerary, I wanted to put together a day that balances the bigger attractions with some of the slower movements in between. Even the drive up into Mt Tamborine feels like such a key part of the journey. The further up the mountain you go, the narrower and more winding the roads start to become, with the open hinterland gradually giving way to dense rainforest and thick forest canopies surrounding the drive. And once the forest starts closing in around the road, you really start to feel like you're leaving everything else behind. I recommend starting the morning at Spice of Life Cafe to grab a quick coffee and a light breakfast before starting the day's activities. Considering the number of options available, it's amazing that this place is consistently one of the highest rated cafe spots on the mountain. And as an alternative, there's also Tamborine Mountain Coffee Plantation. Even if you're not stopping for breakfast, this place is still worth visiting for the great coffee and the awesome atmosphere. Just make sure to check they're open on the day you visit. Now after breakfast, it's time to head further into the rainforest towards a place called Curtis Falls. Curtis Falls is probably the most well-known waterfall on Mt Tamborine, and once you get into the rainforest, it's easy to see why. The walk itself is relatively short, but most of the track stays shaded under this gorgeous thick forest canopy the entire way down. Depending on whether or not you do the lower walking track, I would budget in probably 40 to 60 minutes for this activity. If you bring a good camera with you and you slow your camera shutter speed down just enough, you might be able to get the perfect photo. The area around the creek is also one of the few places on the mountain where glowworms can naturally be found at night, so if that's of interest to you, definitely come back here after sunset. After Curtis Falls, head over to Rainforest Skywalk. Now, if you're scared of heights, this is probably the point in the itinerary where things may get slightly uncomfortable. The Skywalk experience is a series of elevated walkways that sit around and above the rainforest canopy. I didn't know this till today, but the route itself is actually mixed with normal rainforest trails at ground level, so it's not just one long bridge through the treetops. You can speedrun this thing, but I recommend spending a good 45 minutes to an hour enjoying the Skywalk experience. A lot of the rocks around these creeks are covered in thick moss because the rainforest humidity up here stays consistently high for most of the year. The cantilever section is probably the bit of the experience you may have seen a photo of or heard about previously, and it is definitely the main highlight. And no, that's not my shaky camera hands. The whole thing actually rocks slightly as you walk on it, even if you're the only person on there like I was at the time. Now, while the Skywalk feels modern, the rainforest surrounding it is actually part of one of the oldest surviving subtropical rainforest environments in the world. So even though this is one of the more touristy attractions on the mountain, it still feels surprisingly immersive once you get deeper into the experience. Now, you should have built up an appetite, so it's the perfect time for lunch. I recommend stopping at the highly popular and very charming St. Bernard's Hotel. And if the name sounds familiar, it's because, yes, the hotel was named after the St. Bernard's dogs that are famous for rescuing people in the Swiss Alps region. The hotel originally opened back in the 1880s, so it's been part of the tourist scene on Mt Tamborine for a very long time. But the biggest reason people come here now is probably the view. The view is stunning. From the outdoor seating area, you can see out across the hinterland all the way to the Gold Coast skyline in the distance. The food leans more hearty and comforting, which honestly suits the whole mountain atmosphere perfectly. Now, after lunch, the itinerary can really go into two different directions depending on what you're looking for. If you want to slow things down, I recommend heading over to the Gallery Walk. Gallery Walk has basically become the main tourist strip on Mt Tamborine, filled with smaller cafes, boutique stores, and random specialty shops that all fit the atmosphere of the mountain. Now, if you've just come from St. Bernard's Hotel, the one thing you start to notice around Gallery Walk is the strong European mountain village influence, and German-inspired architecture spread throughout the area. And that architecture is apparent once again at the next stop, the Tamborine Mountain Distillery. It's one of the oldest boutique distilleries in Queensland, producing everything from schnapps and liqueurs through to locally inspired spirits. And compared to larger commercial distilleries, the place still feels very small, personal, and handcrafted. We ended up trying a few of the tasting shots here, and honestly, it was a lot of fun picking from the huge list of flavors they had on offer. Continuing the slower pace to the afternoon, we stopped by Witches Falls Winery, which is one of the first wineries to open back in the early 2000s. Thanks to the cooler temperatures combined with the elevation, you'll find a lot of wineries and cellar doors spread throughout the Mt Tamborine region. So if your perfect afternoon is a winery tour, then you can definitely do that here as well. Now, if you wanted a more active afternoon, head over to Thunderbird Park directly after lunch. Honestly, if you're visiting Mt Tamborine with kids, I think this is the place they'll want to go. The area has everything from horse riding, rock pools, rainforest walking tracks, to laser skirmish and mini golf, so there's a lot to do here. Even if you've come without kids, Australia's biggest high ropes adventure park, the Treetop Challenge, is definitely worth the stop. It takes you directly up into the forest canopy, through rope bridges, suspended obstacles, and flying foxes that whiz you straight through the treetops. And if you want more waterfalls, Cedar Creek Falls is only a short drive away. Compared to Curtis Falls earlier in the day, the area is much more open and built around the creek itself. Just keep in mind that parking here is pretty limited, so plan ahead before visiting. The first section of the track is completely wheelchair friendly. It's only a few hundred meters and it takes you directly to the Cedar Falls lookout. Now, most people come here for a swim, so they continue further down from the lookout to the rock pools below. It's easy to understand why on a summer's day, people can spend hours swimming at Cedar Creek Falls. Now, whether you've had a relaxed or an active afternoon, you have to finish the day by heading over to Hang Glider Lookout for sunset. The place is definitely not a secret, so again, make sure you get here early if you want parking. From up here, you can see out across the hinterland to the west, which creates some pretty incredible both daytime and sunset views. Then you just need to sit back, relax, and enjoy the sunset closing out a perfect day on Mt Tamborine.